Hello, friend. It is July 11th. I'm Pat Sloan, and this is our daily challenge. I almost said June. Can you believe I almost said June? How does that happen? Okay, so July 11th, we have a slice and dice challenge today. Okay, this is going to be an easy one because what I want you to do is take a look at your rotary cutters. Yes, your famous, your most best slice and dice item in your toolbox. So one of the things I find with, especially when I went out teaching a lot on the road and seeing all of you in your own environments and you brought your own things with you, is that people tended to keep their first rotary cutter probably way past when they should, because a lot of times our first rotary cutters are not really the best anymore. At the time, they may have been like a very inexpensive one because you were just learning and you didn't know if you're going to like quilting, or it came in some sort of a kit, or somebody gave it to you, so it may have been old. And over time, particularly if you've been quilting a while, the ergonomics of the rotary cutters have changed. There's a lot of different styles, and you can find something that really works and fits your hand better than probably your first one. The other thing is you may have just gotten in the habit of using one over and over again, and maybe there are better options. So today I want you to take out all, excuse me, I want you to take out all of your rotary cutters. Find them all, gather them up, and take a look at them. See what you have. Are they easy to change the blades? Do they need to be cleaned? Does the blade need to be changed? Yes, that does happen. Take a look at the ones you're mostly using. Do you have a better option? Did you buy a newer one and you realized you haven't actually been using it? Take a picture. Take a picture of your grouping and share it over at my Facebook page, Quilt Along with Pat Sloan. Tell me about your favorite one here at YouTube. So I'm going to show you some of mine. I have grown to love for many years now Olfa cutters. Those are my favorite. So we're going to take a look at what I have. I've brought out a few of them here. And so Greg is going to help me out too as we're doing this. So I have a collection of the Olfa cutters that I brought out. There are different styles and different sizes. These are all, except for the 28, these are all 45 millimeter blades. This side, this is my favorite go-to size, but I did bring a tiny one for you to see. These three are the traditional, original format, particularly these two. These are, I'll talk to you about them later, but this format of this slider is what the traditional one was. There are other styles now that are much more ergonomic. This one has a dual slide so that you can expose just half the blade. Greg, do you want to just pull down the slide on one side and then just show that? You can just you can see that there's just half of it exposed or the other half. And some people like that, particularly if you might be a lefty or you might actually change your rotary cutter back and forth. It just exposes half of the blade. And it has a nice curve in it, so it's really nice and ergonomic. This one is my go-to. This is the one I use all the time. It is also the one that, it's easy open, easy shut. If you flip it over, Greg, this has an easy rotary cutter changer. I'll link you to changing the blade. When you pull that down, the blade pops out. It is so simple. There's no screws to do. And I have a whole article on that. This is a rotary cutter that a lot of people like. It's also got an ergonomic handle, and it has a locking button so that you can, I don't know if it's locked right now, Greg, yeah. So you can unlock it to use it, and every time you release the handle, the rotary cutter, the blade goes back in. So it's a safety device too, and then you can lock it. So this is great for people who might have other, like small hands in the family. You don't want to get to it. Okay, so those are my, oh, and then I have to show you the little baby one. You can put that out there, Greg. This is not a real rotary cutter, but it is a charm that Olfa gave me a while back, and it's so stinking cute. So you could hang it on. I think they were actually like phone charms, weren't they? You hung these on your phone at one point in time, but you could put it on anything. It's super cute, and I do have a pin somewhere, but I didn't find that quick enough to bring it out. Now, of course, the other part with the rotary cutters is the blades, and so My favorite blade right now is the Endurance blade. I do really feel that they last longer. So I go ahead and get those as my go-to blade for all my cutting. And I can't wait. I cannot tell you how much I can't wait to go back to cutting my own stuff. Cutting with a rotary cutter, that is like going to be heaven, 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 heaven to cut with a rotary cutter. So when I go to see the doctor for a follow-up, I'm going to say how long till I can use a pizza cutter, because more than likely she's not met a quilter yet to know that what a rotary cutter is. But I might just take one along so I can show her this is what I need to be able to use. Okay, so I have a great question. We're going to spend a little time talking about the selvages on your fabric, because Susan asked me, how much of them can you use? How much of the selvage on the edge of the fabric can you actually use? You know, what she asked was, you know, what part goes in the seam allowance, what's with the little holes, etc. So let's take a look at that. I have got a piece of my Morrison Park fabric, the next fabric line that will be coming out this fall. So this is the selvage. It has the writing on it, and it's generally white on a cotton. And there are some little holes. You can maybe see them down here. I will eventually flip it to the other side. This is the edge, the selvage that has the writing on it and all the data. Now, a lot of people will just, you know, cut that off and not use it. But if you're Susan that wants to be very frugal and she wants to use it, Greg, maybe you can get the ruler. Okay, so, you know, if you're doing patchwork, you have to have a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And so if you are trying to go right on the line, you know, that would be a bit tedious to be sure that you're actually sewing right on this line, not to have a white edge on your patchwork. So I would think that you would want to cut it a little bit less than a 1/4 inch, so that you then have, you know, that little bit of white will always be in the seam allowance. So there is this side. Now I want to flip, Greg, can you flip it over? Okay, so the other edge of the selvage has a less white because there's no writing on this side, but that also means the holes where it's put onto the machinery is into your printed fabric. So do people use those holes? Some people do. They don't really mind if they're there. If you're going to wash this, they're probably going to close up a little bit, but these are a firmer, right? The weave of the fabric is much tighter right out here on the edge, and so those little holes may or may not totally go away. So that's a personal choice whether that's going to bother you if you see a couple little holes along the edge of your fabric when it's in a quilt block. Okay, this is cotton fabric. Batiks are a bit different. And so I don't have a lot of batiks right now in the house. So I do have a piece that I'll show you. And I need this, which edge is it, Greg? Out here? Okay. They're harder to find the edge on a batik because there's no writing. There's no white strip. There's no name of the fabric manufacturer. This was one of my Moda batiks from a few years ago. What you'll find is that, can you see here? You see there's fraying on this because it's a cut edge, and if you look at the other side, there's fraying over here from a cut edge. This is actually the selvage edge. It's very tight, it's very clean, there's no loose threads. This was actually a piece that from some project, I was doing some masks with it. So I know that this is a little bit tighter. It's kind of hard to see that, but up close you could see it's got a little bit tighter, and sometimes there's a little ridge. Other manufacturers, you can pull this up, Greg. Other manufacturers, the edges of their batiks might look different. You might see holes, you might see more of a ridge definition. So every manufacturer's is a little bit different. This is a Moda batik, and they're really quite fine. So there you go, Susan, and anybody else who's thinking about batiks and wondering, thinking about the selvages and wondering, plus people cut them off and leave maybe a 1/2 inch to 1 inch of the fabric, of the print part, because they'll do salvage quilts. I like to put them sometimes on the label, so you have the name of the fabric line on the label. It's a lot of fun. I love doing that. Gives me a memory of what fabrics I used, and if I have them, you know, all around the label. Okay, so for a little quick roundup, I thought I'd just give you an update on the wrists, because I have some people who've been writing me and asking me questions, because as you can see, they actually are getting they're very much reduced down in the swelling. You may not see it as well in the camera, but the discoloration is stronger on the left hand than on the right hand. The left hand was more injured, way more injured, bone popped out, all that kind of stuff. So it also has the broken bone, and so there's, in the finger, it's just a lot more trauma to this hand. But I have a very low pain, and I have to be careful. You often see me, I didn't wear the sling today because I wanted to explain. I wear the sling because these are heavy. They're plaster. I don't know if she's got metal in there too to stabilize it, but they're heavy, and it starts to weigh on my shoulder. And so I tend to wear this one in a sling, so I have one free arm. The soft cast is not as heavy. This one is thicker and heavier. So I can't really use this hand much to do anything. It's just the angle is nothing, that I can't put any weight on it. But it's all going really well. On Tuesday I go back in and see the surgeon again, and I'll get an update, and I'll probably get smaller things and find out a bit more about what they're expecting to have happen with everything, which I'm sure it'll be positive, because it all seems to be moving along very nicely. And so thank you so much for all of your notes, all of your sweet things. I really appreciate it. I read everything. I can't answer everything, but I read it all. If you're looking for the links down below, I have to the rotary cutters, because if you need an upgrade, I highly recommend the one that I use. So, and you want to get some blades, down below, got the links. I will see you over on the Facebook group, Quilt Along with Pat Sloan. I love you. Have an amazing day. Mwah. See you online.